Jerry Smith, the suburban myth, bound by lawns and microwave refs. He lives in patterns, programmed so neat, yet never quite finds where the sidewalk meets. Jerry Westerby, the spy in prose, ink-stained fingers trace the shadows he knows. He writes in codes and meanings that bend, a truth that's liquid, a means to know.
All right, so get this. Today's deep dive is a first for us. We're tackling a question about two fictional characters,
Okay.
both named Jerry,
All right.
but they seem worlds apart, so we're trying to figure out what connects them.
Interesting, intriguing premise for sure.
Right.
On the one hand, you've got Jerry Smith, from Rick and Morty,
Right. Yeah.
a character known for his well-relatable everyday struggles.
Yeah.
And on the other, you have Jerry Westerby from the world of John le Carré's espionage novels.
Espionage.
Yeah, a very different world. And you've provided us with a Wikipedia entry on Jerry Smith, which aims for a neutral perspective, of course, and then an academic paper that directly compares these two Jerrys.
I have to admit, when I first saw this request come through, I thought someone was playing a joke on us. But the more I thought about it, the more curious I got. Yeah.
Are we onto some bizarre coincidence here, or is there actually something deeper here?
Well, instead of looking for direct connections between the two,
Okay.
what if we examine the archetypes that they embody?
Okay.
We might find some surprising parallels if we explore their roles within their respective narratives.
All right. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So Jerry Smith, not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed.
Right.
Wikipedia even calls him a lovable loser, which, let's be honest,
Heh.
pretty accurate.
Why do you think that is, though? What makes a character like Jerry Smith, who's constantly stumbling and making these mistakes, so relatable?
I think it's because he represents that part in all of us that feels inadequate, out of our depth.
Yeah.
I mean, look at who he's surrounded by.
It's true.
You've got Rick with his insane genius, larger-than-life characters.
Summer and her teenage drama.
Right.
It's no wonder the guy feels a little lost.
Exactly. He embodies a kind of vulnerability that is humorous, but also strangely endearing.
Oh, for sure.
But wouldn't you say there's also this strange resilience to Jerry Smith?
Oh, absolutely.
He just keeps going.
Oh, yeah, he's got this absurd resilience about him. Like,
Yeah.
no matter how much he gets beaten down, he always bounces right back up.
He does.
Makes you wonder if it's obliviousness, or is there some kind of hidden strength in his ability to just persevere?
Yeah.
And then you've got Doofus Jerry,
Right.
this alternate reality version of him who's basically everything our Jerry isn't.
Right.
Hyper-intelligent, physically fit, a total alpha Jerry.
But an alpha Jerry.
Right.
It's really a fascinating juxtaposition, isn't it?
It is.
This concept of duality, the interplay between these seemingly opposite traits. And it features really prominently in le Carré's work, too.
Really?
Especially with Jerry Westerby.
Okay.
He may not have a doofus counterpart running around, but
Yeah.
Westerby's internal conflicts, I think, mirror that sense of duality,
Okay.
but in a much more nuanced and arguably more tragic way.
Okay, so you got to fill us in on Jerry Westerby, because from the excerpts that you sent, he seems like a completely different breed of Jerry.
He is in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
Jerry Westerby,
Yeah.
he's a British journalist operating during the Cold War,
Okay.
and he's constantly caught between his own personal morals and the often brutal reality of espionage.
Yeah.
Imagine the internal turmoil of juggling journalistic integrity with the demands of a world where secrets are currency and trust is a luxury very few can afford.
That's got to be a high-pressure job.
Oh, absolutely.
So we've got one Jerry dealing with these wacky sci-fi scenarios, and then another one navigating the very real dangers of the Cold War.
Right.
Besides a shared name, what connects these two?
Well, the paper you've provided seems to suggest that both characters, despite their vastly different contexts, represent this archetype
Okay.
of the ordinary man who is forced to confront extraordinary circumstances.
Interesting.
They wrestle with feelings of inadequacy, grapple with moral dilemmas,
Right.
and ultimately face betrayal from the very systems or people that they believe in.
So they're both kind of thrust into these situations that really test who they are at their core.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's through their responses to these challenges,
Right.
their triumphs and their failures, that I think we gain a deeper understanding of their characters and perhaps even ourselves.
This is already making me rethink what I thought I knew about Jerry.
Yeah.
It's amazing how such a seemingly simple name can spark such a complex conversation.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think as we delve further into the nuances of their stories, we might be surprised at the insights that we uncover.
So we've got these two very different Jerrys, both grappling with these extraordinary circumstances.
Right.
But how do those circumstances shape who they become? Let's start with Jerry Smith.
Okay.
What is it about his specific struggles that make him such a compelling character?
Right.
Even with all of his flaws.
Even with all his flaws, exactly.
Yeah.
I think Jerry Smith, even though he's surrounded by all this interdimensional travel and bizarre alien encounters, he still remains remarkably grounded in everyday anxieties.
Yeah.
He worries about his job or lack thereof,
Yeah.
his marriage, his place in the family.
Mm-hmm.
He's really the voice of ordinary anxieties
Yeah.
in this extraordinary world.
Yeah, he really is. He kind of reminds me of that friend we all have who's always getting into these ridiculous situations, but you can't help but root for them.
Yeah.
You mentioned his resilience earlier, how he always seems to bounce back no matter what life throws at him.
Exactly. Take, for instance, the episode where he accidentally creates a miniature amusement park inside a homeless man.
Oh, yeah.
It's completely ludicrous, right?
Yeah.
But it highlights his naivete and
Yeah.
his almost innocent approach to the world,
Yeah.
even when he's faced with the absurdity of the multiverse.
Yeah, it's almost tragicomic, isn't it? This constant collision between Jerry's ordinary desires and this extraordinary reality that he inhabits.
Precisely. And I think that's where his comedic appeal intersects with his deeper exploration of the human condition.
Right.
You know, he wants what we all want. He wants respect, love, a sense of purpose.
Right.
But his attempts to achieve those things are constantly thwarted,
Yeah.
often by his own hand.
Yeah. And then you've got Doofus Jerry.
Yeah.
His hyper-competent, almost villainous alternate self.
Yeah.
It's like the writers are showing us the dark side of Jerry's desire for validation.
Yeah, that's a keen observation, and I think Doofus Jerry really serves as a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
A what-if scenario, exploring the potential consequences of unchecked ambition,
Right.
even for someone as seemingly harmless as Jerry.
Right. It makes you wonder if there's a little Doofus Jerry lurking inside every Jerry Smith.
Perhaps.
Like, is it just circumstance that determines which path they'll take?
That's an interesting question, one that I think the show leaves open for us to ponder. But
Okay.
But let's shift our focus for a second to Jerry Westerby.
Okay.
Because unlike Jerry Smith, who grapples with the absurdity of the multiverse,
Right.
Westerby faces a different kind of absurdity.
Right.
The moral compromises that are demanded by this world of espionage.
Right. He's operating in a world where the lines between right and wrong are constantly shifting.
Exactly.
And trust is a dangerous commodity.
Very dangerous. And yet, within that shadowy world, Westerby stands out because of his idealism.
Really?
The excerpts that you provided describe him as romantic. The man who still believes in honor and integrity,
Okay.
even when he's in a profession that often demands the opposite.
Right.
You know, he's drawn to the excitement of espionage,
Hmm.
but he's also repulsed by the inherent moral ambiguity of it.
So he's trying to hold on to his humanity in this world that's constantly trying to strip it away.
Yes, and it makes his eventual fate all the more tragic
Yeah.
because he's unable to reconcile his personal values
Right.
with the demands of his profession, and he ultimately becomes a liability, a threat to the very system he serves.
Wow. It's interesting, both Jerry's experience betrayal,
Yes,
but in very different ways.
that's true.
Jerry Smith is constantly let down by the people closest to him,
Right.
but Jerry Westerby is betrayed by the system that he dedicates himself to.
It's true. And perhaps that speaks to the universality of their struggles.
Yeah.
Whether it's family dynamics or the moral compromises of a shadowy profession,
Right.
both Jerrys kind of remind us that betrayal is just this inherent part of the human experience.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought, to say the least. But is there a silver lining here?
What?
Are these stories just these bleak reminders of the ways in which we can be hurt? Or is there something more we can take away from them?
I think that's what we need to explore because while both Jerrys face these difficult circumstances,
Okay.
I think their stories also highlight the enduring power of human connection and the importance of staying true to oneself, even in the face of adversity.
So both Jerrys, in their own ways, show us how hard it can be to stay true to yourself when things get tough. But why do these stories, these Jerry stories, really get to us? Why should we care?
I think that's the big question, isn't it? We connect with stories that feel real, even if they're about spaceships or spies. The Jerry archetype, with all its flaws, reminds us that it's okay to not be perfect, to mess up, to not have everything figured out.
It's like they give us permission to be human, warts and all.
Exactly. In a world that's always telling us to be exceptional, the Jerrys remind us that there's something brave about just getting through the day. They don't have superpowers or secret missions, but their struggles are real and relatable.
And it's not just about them, is it? They change the people around them, too.
Absolutely. Look at Rick, for instance. He might act like Jerry's nothing, but sometimes Jerry's simple view, his belief in family, it gets to Rick.
It's like Jerry represents something that Rick, with all his brains and gadgets, can't understand.
And then there's Beth, stuck between her father's crazy world and her life with Jerry. Her struggle shows us the tough choices we make, what we'll give up for family.
Even Morty, who gets annoyed with his dad, he needs Jerry. Jerry's like a normal thing in the craziness that Rick brings.
Right. The Jerrys, they might not be the best at things, but they balance out the other characters. They keep the story grounded, showing us that even with endless possibilities, we still crave connection, love, belonging. Those things stay the same.
This has been really eye-opening. I never thought looking at the Jerry idea would be so interesting.
That's the great thing about stories. They surprise you and make you rethink what you thought you knew. The Jerrys, they're not just side characters. They mean a lot if you look deeper.
So before we finish, what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What can we learn from the Jerrys out there?
Maybe this. Next time you see a Jerry, in a book, a movie, even a real person, don't dismiss them. Their problems, their weaknesses, even their mess-ups, they can teach you about being human.
And by seeing that, we learn about ourselves and the world, too.
Exactly. Because sometimes the most amazing things are found in the ordinary.
That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the surprisingly deep world of Jerry. See you next time on The Deep Dive, where we'll explore another fascinating part of what it means to be human. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
If you even care what's real for one, for the other is skewed like two chessboards, one missing a few. Jerry to Jerry, a paradox brewed, order and chaos in quiet pursuit. One writes the world in the rules of today, the other rewrites it in shadows of gray. They share the same name, but not the same time. Smith and his clockwork, Westerby and rhyme. Two lives in contrast, both empty and full. 2 points on a line that can never quite pull. Jerry to Jerry, their worlds never meet. One bound by the obvious, one bound by deceit. Yet in this strange tension, they endlessly spin. The same name, the same fate, yet worlds locked within.